from Max Allen Media.
Conversations.
And conversations. Guys, this is an amazing show today. This is another Weird Science Wednesday on September the 14th, 2022, from the Studio 6 of Max Allen Media. It's not a lot, but it's all I got, and I'm proud of it. Now let's get down to brass tacks. What are we talking about today? Today we're talking about vampires, the undead, those who fly around drinking blood or whatever. If you've read Bram Stoker's novel, you understand that Bram had a fertile imagination and had some really cool things to say about vampires. Well, I have some things to say too. First of all, until recently, you would never have convinced me that vampires were any more, any less than the stuff of legend and the fertile imaginations that have grown, flourished, prospered over the decades, over the centuries, over the aeons. What about the undead? We hear so much about them we don't really know because, come on, I watched a television series from Canada called Forever Night. I saw movies called Twilight. I read Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've seen Bela Lugosi as Dracula. So many areas where people see slightly differing versions of vampires, but all centering on one thing, that they feed on human essence. They feed on blood. That they're immortal and that they cannot die except by, silver bullets, stake through the heart, cut off their head, drop them in an ocean. I don't know. I hear all these crazy things, and I say to myself, what truth is there? So I did some research. I spent a little while on it and decided, nah, you know what? Let's get on to more interesting stuff until I met a vampire. That's right. I believe I met a vampire. I was on a flight from Seattle to New York, and because of my blood clotting, I have to take first class. Oh, God, it's expensive, but it's the only way to fly there without getting in trouble. So we're cruising along, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm reading books. And I have this, you always have a seatmate, a traveling companion a la carte. And he's sitting there, and he's reading some books, and I felt something about him, an air of refinement, an air of class, kind of like you're sitting next to a duke or a prince or a king, somebody who's got it together. And I'm very good at striking up conversations, and I make fast friends. I love people. People are generally wonderful. And this was a fine man, and we chatted. We talked about this and that. I learned so much from him. Listening more than talking, which for me is a serious move. Whoa, you did what? You listened? Oh, no, not you. Where's Max? What have you done with him? Where's the real Max? Well, I was listening to him. We were talking, and the subject came up about vampires. He brought it up. It's as though he had, he needed some catharsis, perhaps. He needed an opportunity to get it off his chest. And I found out a little while into the flight, maybe a couple hours actually, that he is a vampire. I asked his name, he smiled, and as he smiled, I saw these fangs. They weren't huge like on TV, big saber-toothed tiger things, but they were like little fangs. And I looked at him, and he smiled and he said, "My name is Daedalus." I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Daedalus." I think it was Daedalus. But we talked, and he introduced himself, and I said, "Look," I've got a podcast, webcast. I've got a radio gig. I would love to get you on the show." He said, "I'm sure you would." I'm like, "You're not happening." And now, about 4 hours into the flight, he agreed to grant me an interview. as long as the questions were not off track, if I didn't get into the weeds, because he said, look, if you go to an area I don't like, I'll just stop talking. We'll finish the flight. I said, I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to out you, but I want to know more about you. I said, look, if we interview it, I will even disguise your voice if you wish. He said, that'd be cool. Okay, I would like that very much. So I broke up my recorder. You know, it's not like Coach, where you get up out of seat up against the window and you go past a crying baby and you go past some 500-pound passenger and you get into the overhead and you wrestle with crap trying to find your bag. Then you can't put it in your lap because you have no lap. This is first class, baby. I stood up, opened the compartment, grabbed my little briefcase, pulled out my recorder, set it on the table. And you know, it's not like in Coach where that little table flips down off the seat. Dude, I got a table. This is nice. That's why I don't fly very often, because you can buy a house for the price of a frickin' Seattle and New York first class ticket. Thank God mine was paid for by my publishers. Anyway, we're cruising along. I got my recorder. Now, excuse some of the background noise, but even in first class, it's not quiet. Hospital quiet. You can hear the engines, occasional people running around. But in our case, damn near everybody was asleep, and we spoke quietly, and I put that recorder right in front of us, and I got a killer interview, and I call it On an Airplane with a Vampire. Now, I want to play it for you. I think you might find it incredibly interesting. It's about 8 minutes long. Keep this in mind. He says he is a vampire. I'm asking questions that we more or less pre-scripted, because if I went off the track, he was going to shut me down. And it's, how often do you get on board a plane with a vampire? Somebody who's wealthy, who's well-dressed, who seems to have class, and on command. And I tested him a little bit, okay? He did a few things for me on the plane that convinced me this is no ordinary guy. I was like, I'll give you an example. He took a quarter. I gave him a quarter, 25-cent piece. And he put it between his thumb and his finger, and right in front of me, he bent it. He folded a freaking quarter over his thumb. I still have that quarter. He gave it to me as a souvenir. I said, so this is an incredibly strong guy. He looked at me, and he said, I will reveal myself for a moment. His face, right in front of my eyes, his face went pale, and his little fangs doubled in size. They went like about maybe half an inch more. Sharp as hell. They grew right in front of me. And his eyes grew black. Not red, not steaming green, black. I'm talking the pupils expanded. His eyes were total pupil. Just for a second, I about shit myself. And I sit back and went, oh, please. Oh. He said, I'm sorry if I offended you. I didn't mean to do that. But you asked me for some evidences. I said, you know what? Let's do this interview. My God, let's do this interview. So let me play for you. Let me play this interview for you. And before I do it, let me preface the fact that this is on a handheld MP3 recorder at 35,000 feet, cruising through very smooth skies. And you can kind of hear the engines. It's a little louder than I wished, but I didn't want to process it too much because it would lose authenticity. Okay, here we go. Let me find it. First of all, got a cough. I love that cough button. And I got it. Oh, I don't have a drink. I think I should get a drink first. Then I'll play it for you. So let me just turn this thing around. Oh, yes. Nectar of the gods. Oh, how beautiful is this? Holy freaking cow. Oh, you hear that noise? Oh, that is the noise of pure joy. Pure joy. By the way, I did learn with my fast friend Daedalus that vampires can drink soda pop. They can eat food. they don't just only drink blood. There's something about what's in the blood, hemoglobin, something like that, that they need. Their own body cannot produce sufficient cells, sufficient red cells. For some reason, their blood is incomplete. And they must partake of blood, rich blood, animal blood, human blood, whatever, in order to replenish this depletion of the cells in their blood. And that's why they're vampires. They don't drink blood because they think, oh, that's a very good year, it's a good vintage, I will drink this. No, it's because they got to have it. Now, I'm not defending any attacks on humanity, loss of life by humans, your pet fifi, foo-foo, fluffy little roadkill dog, or some of the cattle in the field. I'm not defending that. But what I am saying is, after this interview, I learned that vampires aren't exactly what I believe them to be. Maybe you believe them to be. All right, without further ado, I'm going to play this. Let me find channel 2. Here we go. Hello, this is Max Allen at 35,000 feet. We are cruising in an airliner in the first class section. We're nearly all alone on the way to New York, and I'm speaking with the most interesting gentleman. Please introduce yourself to us, if you will.
My name is Daedalus, and I am a vampire. I'm not one simply seeking attention, nor do I suffer delusion. I am a vampire, a creature of the night, one of the undead.
So you're a real blood-sucking, fly around like a vampire? Could you expound a little?
So long as you do not mock me, I will continue. My story begins over 645 years ago when I was taken into the family of Dracula, the prince of the kingdom of the undead. At the time of my being taken, I was 23 years of age and lived in the city of Vienna in Austria. My mentor, he who took me, was Friedrich Mitterlehrer Tasche of the Habsburg house and lineage. It was not long afterward that he became known as Frederick IV and ruled as Duke of Austria from 1402 until his supposed death. Of course, he being a vampire, he never died. It is regular practice for us to assume new identities after time, usually when people around us begin to take note of our seemingly eternal youth. He is alive today and still living in Vienna. He is ageless, and I cannot begin to guess how old he really is, as he's quite temperamental about it when it comes to discussing his age. The closest any of us can guess is about 1,200 years, give or take a century or two.
Okay, do you still hunt people? I mean, this still goes on?
Of course not. Do you think me a barbarian? I drink animal blood almost exclusively, but on rare occasion enjoy the flavor, the bouquet, and the body of human blood. There's a taste difference that the discerning palate immediately recognizes.
But you said you don't hunt people anymore.
We won't talk of the past, but I do not fly down from the rooftops or prowl the parks for prey. Not people anyway. Most vampires are law-abiding immortals who wouldn't be caught dead, so to speak. Drinking directly from a human, it's a messy business, that. With today's myriad sexually transmitted diseases and questionable viruses going around, we, most of us anyway, only partake of carefully screened and selected blood. We are largely financially well-to-do and have significant interests in blood banks, plasma centers, and have access to morgues, mortuaries, and hospitals, of course.
Oh, you had me worried for a bit. Tell me of your superpowers. Are they the stuff of legend, or is there really any truth to it?
My powers. It's funny you should refer to my talents as powers. I suppose that comes of reading too many Superman comic books. I, by the way, have every Superman comic ever published since the first, and all are in absolutely pristine condition. Yes, my passion for comics has left me a most valuable collection among my many other literary works. Powers, talents, abilities. Let's see. I am immensely strong according to my basic constitution. I have the strength of perhaps a dozen strong men, but I am not bulletproof. I can be shot, stabbed, poisoned, thrown from buildings, and all manner of violence can be preferred against me, but I heal very quickly. I've been run through with a sword, shot with bullets, stabbed and slashed with many edged weapons, only to immediately heal, and often enact my revenge on he who has assaulted me.
So, can you be killed?
I can die, but will not tell you how. Suffice it to say that Bram Stoker did not get it all right. I can fly, but only if I transform into a flying animal, such as a raven or a bat. Yes, vampires can take on animal form, and that form need not meet the physical constraints of a human. I can, for example, take on the form of a large wolf, a tiger, and even an Indian elephant. I can dissolve into smoke and pass through even the most skillfully crafted joints and crevices of mortar and stone. Through keyholes and under doors, that's easy. I've done that a million times.
Is it true that the sun's rays can kill you?
I am extremely sensitive to direct rays from the sun, feeling only discomfort as long as I stay in strong shade, such as in the shadow of a tall building or the shade of a tree, or under a good parasol for that matter. It is the naked or lightly filtered sunlight, such as that through a thin veil of clouds, that can harm me. I avoid the painful presence of sunlight always, living by night, as I have for so many centuries. When I travel in daylight, I am always driven by a manservant. He keeps me in the back of the car in total or near darkness. Thanks be to whomever invented window tinting.
So you're saying the sunlight can kill you?
Let's move along. I am rather well-to-do, and some would even go so far as to say filthy rich, although that's a term I really do not appreciate. Having had so many years to invest wisely and set a little aside from time to time, I can say that my long-term investments have done well, but of course, not without losses.
That's very interesting. You want to let me in on some of your investment tips? You seem to have done very well for yourself.
Have you got about 600 years ahead of you? If so, then I would be happy to share them with you. Otherwise, they'd be worthless to you. It is said that history is a mirror. And here, Li Shimin, second emperor of the Qing dynasty, could not have been more right. I have had the good fortune to live so long as to understand and even predict the repetitive cycles of history as man flourishes, fails, and generally bumbles about with no more aim or focus than a young child. Keeping this in mind, many of us have easily survived times of war and great financial turmoil through the centuries. We've been able to possess precious things such as gold, diamonds, and precious works of art, and watch and manage and handle their fluctuating values. And most of all, we've been able to see the swing of the pendulum of governments and civilizations as they wax and wane like the moon. I am Daedalus, and I am a vampire.
And that concludes my brief but insightful interview with a vampire. I'm Max at 35,000 feet, and that's the way I heard it. That's uncanny. And, listen to what he said about how they get rich. He said that history is a mirror, quoted a Chinese emperor from way back. And, he's right. Think about it. If you live 600, 800 years, 1,000 years, whatever, and you keep your ear to the wall and your eyes on the prize, don't you think it would be remarkably easy? Think about it as you watch what he said, the pendulum swaying. And it is. History repeats itself. Somebody once said history doesn't really repeat itself, but it rhymes. So if you're living long enough to catch the rhymes, to catch the swings, then you know a million ways to make money. So this guy's filthy rich. He's flying first class. That Armani suit he's wearing cost about half as much as my doggone studio. I don't hold wealth against anybody. But he's right. When I asked him, I said, let me in on some financial tips. He said, if you're going to live 600 more years, I can help you out. Was that an invitation to take me in? To take me into the family? I don't know. I don't think so. I think he was merely making a point and saying, anything I tell you will be worthless unless you've experienced the past. And I mean, there's a certain thing in humanity, he and I talked about it, where memory fades so quickly. We fought in Vietnam. We fought there for 11, 12, 13 years. And during the time we fought, it was on everybody's lips, everybody's tongue. Here it is today. We get out of Vietnam. We finally pulled out in 75. So what is that? 85, 95, 05, 15. You're talking 47 years ago. And people under 30 haven't even learned about it in school. I'm talking to college students who look me in the eye and they say, we had a war in Vietnam? Like they had no idea. And people, it's not just their lack of memory, but our lack of values. Societies go from being puritanical, over the top. I mean, she's a witch, burn her. He looked at her wrong, that's sexual. They touched fingers in public. To what we have today, where homosexuals marry homosexuals, and it's legal marriage. It's not a sacrament of marriage. God does not, will not ever recognize it. But it's endorsed. It's not just allowed, it's endorsed. The entire LGBTQ immorality. But we've seen this before. Every great civilization, the Romans, the Greeks, these civilizations fall. When? How? The Egyptians? As their morality goes down the toilet, as they begin to abandon God, abandon religion, abandon those fundamental beliefs of righteousness. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. You understand, commandment after commandment after commandment, and we are slowly ripping it off the slates, throwing the stones to the ground. We don't want to do that. He has seen this. Daedalus has tracked this and lived through it. So he's able to quickly see so many ways that you can make more money. I wonder what it's like to live 600 years, over 600 years. And it's interesting, too, to know that the Duke of Austria, Duke Frederick IV, he is a vampire. But, he mentioned earlier, you heard it, that vampires, you can only take so much makeup to look like you're aging. There gets a point in your life where the people around you, your circle of friends, associates, acquaintances, see that you aren't aging. I mean, the makeup, we take makeup to look younger. They take it to look older. They don't do plastic surgery. They do makeup. And at some point where people begin to wonder, hey, I've known him for 40 years. He doesn't really look a day over when I met him. Whenever they get there, this is when they go away. They fade off into the distance. They take new identities. Identities they've probably been crafting in parallel to their own. Just change a date and away you go. And they live from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. 600 years. That's about 7 lifetimes, 7 generations of the average American or European. 600 years. This guy's been watching things happen for 6 centuries. Well, I want to get off of that. Just mention that it was the most interesting interview. It was fascinating. I thought you'd like it. I don't have time or I'd play it again. But that's on a plane with a vampire. By the way, it's interesting. I never felt personally threatened by the man. About the time I was beginning to believe he was a vampire, I wasn't afraid. He walked me in. He explained things. You know what got me? sunlight does not kill a vampire. Here's what I'm thinking. He said hurt caused pain. We described outside of the interview that many vampires have a skin condition very similar to this. Extensive scarring and burning, because direct sunlight, maybe it kills you, but here he says they're living in the shadows, under umbrellas, in cars, underground parking garages. But it still stings. So they're living with a fairly constant pain. If they're out in the sun, do they burst into flames? We didn't get into that. He wouldn't cover it. What he did cover was the simple fact that they don't like the sun. So I'm just going to say, I don't like the bright sun either, but I'm not a vampire. So they have a skin condition. They stay out of the sun. They eat food. They drink wine. They do what we do. But at some point, they have to partake of blood. You heard how he said they have financial interest in blood banks, mortuaries, morgue connections, hospital connections. He mentioned, I won't mention the name, they own an entire chain of hospitals, one of the major hospital chains in the country, named after a Catholic saint. Isn't that interesting? How blasphemous can you be when you've got this hospital, not for profit? They're always not for profit, although they're building buildings every damn where. But these are controlled and owned by vampires. How about that, huh? This explains a lot of their insensitivity to people. This explains why during the COVID hysteria, hospitals took their heroes, their doctors or nurses, who stood in the front line and handled the rush, turned right around and said, screw you, take the shot, do as we say, or you're gone. You're no longer heroes, now you're villains. Only the immorality of vampirism could have caused that. Now, I'm not going to say that Daedalus, the man whom I've met and I know, is one of those immoral bastards. Because when I asked him about this mandatory vaccination thing, and it's not a vaccine, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay. He said, I was never behind that. I never approved of that. I never agreed with that. But I'm not so powerful or so well placed that I could have had any effect upon it. I respect that. Now understand, I'm not saying I love this man, but I'm saying we saw eye to eye on so many things, both political, believe it or not, moral, ethical, regarding the COVID hysteria, regarding government abuse of power, regarding a media that is just so full of crap, it could be Johnny on the spot. Put it on a truck and haul its ass off, dump it somewhere we don't have to smell it. He agreed with me. And I will be talking to him more in the future as I can work out the bugs in our conversations. And I want to thank everybody for watching my show. It's a 1 o'clock show now. Max at midday. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Remember, Monday is Bundy Monday until the election in November, maybe even after. He's a great guy and has a lot to say about many things. We call it Bundy Monday, people, places, politics, policies. Wednesday, like today, is Weird Wednesday. We cover everything from the supernatural, like aliens, ghosts, vampires. And then there's Friday. Is there a doctor in the house? I try to expose new areas of medicine, myth, medicine, and magic. They're so closely intertwined. So I try to introduce those. So that's Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays at 1 p.m. And you can catch it on Facebook. Go to my Facebook account. Just go to Facebook and type in Max Allen Live. There I am. You can go to my main page, which is www.maxallenshow.com. Click. You'll see me and you'll see a link to this video. You'll hear a brief introduction. You can go to rumble.com, www.rumble.com, and enter Max Allen Show. Bip, you can bring up all my posts and shows there as well. Well, you know what? It has been rich. Coming up against the break, about time to close this show down for the day. May the good Lord bless you and keep you. And when you go to sleep at night, you can leave the windows open with some degree of confidence, but maybe not. What was that noise? What? Whoa, what was that?